Unity Center of Vero Beach. Would you stand with me if it's your, and following will be the pledge. Good evening, Reverend.
I want to be sharing with you this evening from our Unity's Daily Word on Grace. We could all use some grace in life. Grace is the great blessing from the Creator that enhances every good effort we make. And Jesus depicted this activity of grace when he said we can begin with faith as small as a mustard seed and still have the power to move mountains. So when we seek answers in prayer, grace reveals what we need to know. Let us open our hearts with the smallest willingness to forgive, knowing that grace will carry us the rest of the way. As we give thanks for the blessings in our lives, grace expands our awareness, and we find more good flowing in and through our lives. The grace of God magnifies every good work that we do. And so we just know that this power, this love of grace touches every heart here and all in Vero Beach. And we are grateful. We say thank you, God. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you join me with a pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll officially call this meeting of September 17, 2013 at 6 p.m. to order. Ms. Vach, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Winger?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Mrs. Carroll?
Here.
Mayor Fletcher?
He's here. Are there any additions, deletions, or to the agenda?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, two suggestions, and they're just that. Under 3A, we have the presentation on the lagoons. And under the Sunshine Law, having conversations about things amongst ourselves is a hard thing to do. Under 9AD, the situation has changed materially as far as the county and fertilizer, but it might be a good chance tonight for us, the five of us, to have a conversation with the idea that we won't come to any conclusion just while the experts are here about what we should do in light of we have a different ordinance than the county. So that is a suggestion if it suits the pleasure. And the other one, which is 9A1, is actually, if I can get this thing to move, is actually the same topic as the ordinance as far as rental space is concerned. And I think those two should be put together.
Yeah, we'll put those together.
So that's just suggestions. It's up to you. You're the chair.
Okay, that
And
sounds
Mayor,
good.
9B1 is about the All Aboard Florida, and we do have a speaker on that during public comment, and I would like to ask that we put public comment on my item 9B2 and then discuss it immediately following the All Aboard Passenger Railroad project. I don't expect that's going to be a lengthy discussion.
We can do that.
I move for approval as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
See Debbie Vaught here? Come on down, Debbie. Angie Sheps? Welcome. Thank you for joining us. These two represent Mulligan's Beach House. Those of you that don't know, Mulligan's is a huge supporter of the city of Vero Beach. Just enormous work that they do for us. They co-sponsor the 4th of July. They did the 54th annual Halloween parade and costume contest, Family Fun Fest, 53rd annual Easter egg hunt, and it goes on and on and on. And we are just so proud of you guys, especially your business, that you help Vero Beach so much. Please take a few seconds and introduce yourself and what you do. And
I am Angie Shepard. I'm the marketing person for Mulligan's, and I just want to say on behalf of George, who couldn't be here tonight, that we really love being a part of such a wonderful city, and he loves giving back to the city and all the things that we do here. We love working with you guys and look forward to continue doing that in the future. So, and this is one of the managers, and she can speak.
Hi, I'm Deb Vaught. I'm in charge of human resources for Mulligan's and a floating manager. And we just appreciate all you've done, and George wish he could be here. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate what you guys have done. You really, really step up to help the community.
Yeah, thank you. I heard the skim board was the best ever. Yes. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Judy Cruz?
I am not Judy Cruz.
You're not Judy Cruz.
But she's representing Judy.
Okay. Judy Representative, introduce yourself, please.
My name is Rhonda Blakey, and I'm the Director of Corporate Partnerships for the Treasure Coast Food Bank.
Thank you. We have a proclamation for you here. Proclamation, whereas hunger and poverty are issues of grave concern in the United States, the state of Florida, the Treasure Coast, and the city of Vero Beach. Whereas the city of Vero Beach is committed to taking steps to raise awareness about the need to combat hunger in every part of our city and to provide additional resources that citizens of Vero Beach need. And whereas the city of Vero Beach is committed to working with the Treasure Coast Food Bank and educating people about the role and importance of food banks in addressing hunger and raising awareness for the need to devote more resources and attention to hunger issues. Whereas more than 99,230 individuals on the Treasure, 99,000?
Yes. We feed almost 100,000 a week.
Wow. That's much larger
That don't know where their next meal is coming from, with over a third of them being children.
Wow. That's sad. But thank you again. Whereas 99,230 individuals on the Treasure Coast and the city of Vero Beach rely on food provided by the Treasure Coast Food Bank annually, and whereas Treasure Coast Food Bank distributes more than 10 million pounds of food in 2012 through its network of food partners, soup kitchens, shelters, and other community organizations. Whereas food banks across the country, including the Treasure Coast Food Bank, will host numerous events throughout the month of September to bring awareness and attention to encourage involvement in efforts to end hunger in their local community. Now, therefore, I, Craig Fletcher, Mayor of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, do hereby recognize September as Hunger Action Month in the City of Vero Beach and call this observance to the attention of our citizens. Please take a few minutes to tell us, first of all, what you do, and then, of course, where we contact you if somebody wants to help.
Okay. We are the only food bank and the largest hunger relief organization on the Treasure Coast. We also serve Okeechobee as well. The numbers are pretty staggering here. In 2008, we distributed about 2 to 3 million pounds of food annually, wow. And that has impacted up to 10 million pounds of food. The economy is still struggling. People are trying to get back on their feet. They've maxed out their credit cards. They may have lost their homes, and they need that bridge. Children who do not have, that are generally on free and reduced lunch, do not know where their next meal is coming from on the weekends and in evenings, Christmas breaks, Easter breaks, summer feeding. So what we do is we step in. We have child nutrition programs. We have programs for seniors, for those folks that generally tend to give maybe some of their foods to pets. We also have a pet feeding program where we can supply those folks with food for their pets. We help veterans. We work with Homeless Coalition Center. We have over 200 partner agencies that work tirelessly 24/7 to feed those that are food insecure. We try to address the root causes of hunger. We have programs that we've developed that have been successful, but we can't do it alone. So we appreciate you very much wearing the orange in support of Hunger Action Month, and together we can solve hunger. Thank you very much.
Do you have a website that people can contact you through? If you just tell us what that is. So
we do. It's stophunger.org. And that gives you all of the contact information. You can learn how to participate, be a volunteer, donate, give, and be a part of the community who is giving back and who is solving hunger on the Treasure Coast.
Great. Thank you for your work.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Step right.
Thank you so much.
It'll be about 3 to 5 days. Step right here. And
Okay.
Anybody else that want to jump up here?
You want to come up? No, that's fine. Okay.
We need the orange.
We gotta
we
have
need the orange.
Come on up, guys.
Come on, all of you.
We're big Gator fans too.
No.
Speak for yourself.
Going to get real personal now.
There you go.
Awesome.
Thank you for, yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Mr. Kramer, that's Tennessee fans.
It's Tennessee.
So we'll see how the weekend goes.
Here we go.
Watch out for next week, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, boys.
Mr. Rice, Mr. Troy Rice, are you here this evening? Good evening.
Yes.
Welcome to our little gathering.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and load up this presentation. All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about the Indian River Lagoon. I have Ann Benedetti with me this evening. She's our local government liaison out of our Palm Bay Service Center. I'm sure you've all met and worked with Ann over the years.
Good evening, Ann.
Again, my name is Troy Rice. I'm the director of the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program. And let's see, is there a way to... No, that's not doing it, is it?
Ms. Vach, could you help him with the presentation?
You want to move
Equipment.
forward? Okay. And I think Ann can move him forward. Let me...
Oh,
Now we got the
now
expert.
we got the big gun. The big guns just walked in.
Oh, there we go. That'll work. There we go.
There you
Thank
go.
All right. First of all, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what the lagoon is and is not. The Indian River Lagoon is not a river, as I'm sure we all know. It is a coastal bar-built estuary. It doesn't flow from one direction to another like most rivers do. It's more of like it operates like a shallow bathtub. It has 6 inlets if you count Port Canaveral, which has locks on it. So actually there's 5 inlets, and 2 of those are considered natural inlets, although they have all been improved through man's
Somewhere
efforts
encouraged
over
through
the years.
human use.
Yes, exactly. The lagoon is a 156-mile long coastal estuary stretching from New Smyrna Beach in Ponce de Leon Inlet south to Jupiter Inlet in Palm Beach County. Management of the lagoon falls both within the St. Johns and the South Florida Water Management District. The dividing line is the border between Indian River County and St. Lucie County. It's considered one of the most biologically diverse estuaries in North America. We have over 4,300 known species of plants and animals in the lagoon, and I'm sure there's probably several thousand other microalgae and bacterias and little critters that we haven't discovered yet. So it's a very rich, biodiverse ecosystem. The National Estuary Program did an economic study of the lagoon back in 2007, and we found that the value of the estuary to our region and to the states about $3.7 billion per year. That's made up of recreational uses as well as the amenity values for properties that are near to the lagoon. The lagoon also provides about 15,000 jobs annually to our area. So not only is it an important environmental resource, it's also an important economic resource as well. The lagoon is a coastal estuary that's defined by its seagrasses. Seagrasses are the primary indicator of the lagoon's overall health. Seagrasses are essential as a nursery for fisheries in the lagoon, habitat for shrimp, and a lot of the endangered manatees that's their primary source of their diet. Additionally, seagrasses serve, as I said, the primary indicator of the lagoon's overall health, And if we have good light penetration in the lagoon, then we'll have good seagrass resources. And then when we have poor light penetration, then we begin to lose our seagrass resources. Unfortunately, in the 1980s, we had very large areas of the lagoon that were denuded of seagrasses. The decline in seagrasses was due to many factors, and most of those, of course, were man-made. In the 1970s and 80s, we had about 45 wastewater treatment plants that discharged over 30 million gallons per day of treated effluent to the lagoon. Fortunately, with the passage of the Indian River Lagoon Act in 1990, that mandated that all of those treatment plants cease their discharge to the estuary by 96. We no longer have that source of nutrients being discharged to the lagoon on a daily basis, and that has improved water quality in the estuary. Unfortunately, we also have a number of water control districts that were put in place in the 1900s, early 1920s, and basically drained the land for agricultural purposes. The series of canals that we drive across every day is the remnants of those water control districts, and there's still active water control districts here in Indian River County that maintain mostly flood control purposes, but unfortunately they do introduce a lot of excess freshwater and pollutants to the estuary that historically did not drain to the lagoon. Historically either went to the upper basin of the St. Johns River or made its way further west into the Kissimmee River Basin and then south to Lake Okeechobee. We've expanded the lagoon's watershed about 146% artificially over the years as a result of all of the canals and drainage ditches that has been constructed in the past 100 years or so. And then, of course, our cities and the counties have developed on top of those agricultural drainage ditches and canals. And so we have the stormwater runoff coming off of our streets and homes and yards and things that are also adding additional nutrients to the lagoon. Algae blooms in the lagoon, this is what we've all been hearing about and reading about in the media over the past year or so. Let me see if I can get a little, there it goes. You'll see a little transition here. This is the super bloom that impacted the central and northern part of the estuary in 2011. This was a blue-green algae bloom. It began in the Banana River Lagoon and moved to the west through the Barge Canal into the northern Indian River Lagoon, and then continued further north into the southern Mosquito Lagoon through the Haulover Canal. It was an unprecedented algae bloom. We had cell counts in 2 billion cells per liter during the peak of this bloom. It lasted about 8 or 9 months and basically shaded the seagrasses. And therefore we lost a lot of seagrasses as a result of this super bloom. The bloom covered about 130,000 acres, and water quality was very poor during the period of the super bloom. While the super bloom was going on, we also had a secondary bloom that was occurring at the same time. It wasn't quite as intense as the area in the large lines areas in the yellow line that you see there, but the small yellow dash lines is the area of the second bloom, and that included here in areas in Vero Beach all the way down to Fort Pierce Inlet. The intensities, as I said, weren't quite as bad as they were further to the north, but it also had an impact on water quality and seagrasses in the central part of the Indian River Lagoon as well. Combination of both of these blooms during 2011 resulted in a loss of about 60% of the lagoon's seagrasses compared to the seagrasses that we had in 2009. Then, when the first super bloom dissipated in the spring of 2012, we started to see water quality conditions improve. And we hoped that the seagrasses might start to make a comeback as a result of that. And then, unfortunately, in August of 2012, the brown tide began in the southern Mosquito Lagoon and moved into the northern Indian River Lagoon. This is the first time that this particular species of brown algae had been found in Florida. It was also a very intense microalgae bloom. We had cell counts over 3 billion cells per liter and the highest chlorophyll A readings in the lagoon that we've ever monitored in the estuary. This is the same species of brown algae that impacted the Laguna Madre estuaries in South Texas in the 1990s. You may have read about that, and basically wiped out their ecosystem for over a decade. So we're keeping an eye on that particular species. This year in 2013, the same brown algae species returned again earlier. In fact, this year it began in April in the northern Indian River Lagoon, just north of the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge, and has since moved into the Mosquito Lagoon again. Fortunately, the bloom is not as intense this year as it was last year. We've got cell counts about half of what they were last year, which is a good indication, but we still are trying to deal with this new species of microalgae in the lagoon. So as a result of the super bloom and the secondary bloom and then the brown tide blooms over the past 2 years, we've had a significant loss of seagrasses in the central and northern part of the Indian River Lagoon. We've lost about 47,000 acres of seagrasses, in fact. As you see by this chart, back in 2009, we had over 70,000 acres of seagrasses. We had more seagrasses 3 years ago than we had in the 1940s. So things were looking pretty good just a few years ago, and then unfortunately we had the algae blooms and have had significant losses as a result of those blooms. So what caused the algae blooms? Well, that's something that we're still investigating. We have a very intensive lagoon initiative underway right now to better understand the lagoon's nutrient cycling and the algae blooms that we've been dealing with for the last couple of years. We believe that the long-term drought that we had earlier this decade may have contributed in both good and bad scenarios. Of course, when you have a drought, you have less runoff that reaches the lagoon, and so you don't have as many pollutants loading the estuary. But then we also had some hypersaline conditions, particularly in the northern part of the lagoon, that occurred. We had salinity levels in the 40s. And as we all know, seawater is about 30 to 32 parts per thousand, and we had 40 to 45 parts per thousand salinity in the northern part of the lagoon. We also had, in 2010, the macroalgae or the drift algae in the lagoon. There's quite a bit of that out there as well, in addition to the seagrasses, and that seems to have crashed in 2010. And it's a very important habitat in the lagoon as well, but and it soaks up a lot of nutrients from the water column. But when that seems to have crashed and died off, it released all of the nutrients that it was stored, and that provided a lot of the food sources, we believe, for the microalgae bloom that we had in 2011. Then we also, in December of 2010, and then 12 months later in January, I'm sorry, I got them reversed. In January of 2010 and then December of 2010, 12 months later, we had the very cold snap, really cold, bad cold snaps, if you recall. We lost a lot of sea turtles in the lagoon, some dolphins and manatees, and a lot of fish kills as a result of those cold snaps. And we believe that may have impacted a lot of the zooplankton, the things that kind of graze on the microalgae out in the lagoon, the invertebrates and the shrimp and things like that. And so by losing that prey species on the microalgae, that also may have been another factor that enabled the super bloom to occur later that year. So what are the agencies doing to help restore the Indian River Lagoon? A number of different organizations are doing a number of things in the estuary. The St. Johns River Water Management District, as I mentioned, has funded the special initiative called the Indian River Lagoon Protection Initiative. And this is in response to the algae blooms and the seagrass losses. Over the next 4 years, the initiative team is going to spend about $4 million to transplant seagrasses, to research the lagoon nutrient cycle, to monitor fisheries, to monitor the benthic habitat, that's the bottom habitat in the lagoon, monitor the infauna and the epifauna, that's the tiny little species that live on the seagrass blades and on the lagoon's bottom. We're going to be doing a very intensive survey of the macroalgae in the lagoon, again the drift algae, trying to determine how important that is to the water column and the nutrient uptake associated with the macroalgae. We'll also be improving our hydrodynamic modeling of the estuary, the cycling in the water. Basically, the lagoon is a wind-driven system primarily, but it is influenced by the inlets, and so we'll be getting a better understanding of that, and also the influence of groundwater loadings to the lagoon over the next couple of years, all within an effort to try and better understand bloom formations, and if there's anything that we can do in the future to help reduce the reoccurrence of future blooms. The Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program has been restoring and focused on the lagoon for over 20 years now. We've been working with local governments throughout the watershed to put in stormwater habitat, stormwater improvement projects and habitat restoration projects throughout the lagoon. Then the Florida Department of Environmental Protection has been working with lagoon communities to develop the basin management action plans through the TMDL process, and they'll be implementing those plans over the next 15 years in cooperation with many of the stakeholders here in the watershed. And then the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, through their Florida Marine Research Institute, is investigating the manatee deaths and the dolphin deaths that we've had in Brevard County within the past year, as well as some of the pelican deaths that occurred earlier this spring. And so there's a lot of effort going on in the lagoon to try and figure out if those wildlife mortalities are somehow related to the seagrass losses, or if there's something else going on out there that we're not aware of. The lagoon is currently experiencing quite a few summertime algae blooms. These are much smaller blooms that we experienced in 2011. Most of these blooms are occurring in Brevard County, again, where we have very low circulation of the lagoon. And so when we get the increased temperatures during the summertime, we tend to get these algae blooms that occur. Some of these are considered harmful algal blooms and can produce saxitoxin in shellfish and in some species of fish like the pufferfish. We do have some pretty intensive Pyrodinium bahamense blooms occurring in Brevard County right now. Several dinoflagellate and diatom blooms are also occurring in the Banana River Lagoon and the Central Indian River Lagoon. We are starting to see some seagrasses rebound, fortunately, in different parts of the lagoon naturally, and we're starting to see some small patches coming back on their own, which is a good sign, and hopefully that trend will continue. The Indian River Lagoon Consortium, which was formed back in early 2012 as a result of the 2011 super bloom, should have their finding report out early next year, and that'll give us a good indication of what caused that particular bloom and perhaps some recommendations on what we can do to reduce reoccurrence in the future. And then we also have the harmful discharges out of Lake Okeechobee at the southern part of the Indian River Lagoon that's impacting the St. Lucie River estuary and the southern Indian River Lagoon. Fortunately, the Army Corps has reduced the amount of discharge coming out of the lake to about 787 million gallons per day. Right now, it was over 1 billion gallons today. So there is some improvement there, but there's still a lot of polluted water entering the southern part of the Indian River Lagoon. I'm often asked when I give these presentations what individuals can do, and basically what we do is we work with stakeholders throughout the watershed and try and educate homeowners and residents on individual practices that they can implement in the lagoon. If fertilizing is necessary in your yard, we ask that folks use slow-release fertilizers. Without phosphorus, we don't need to put phosphorus on our yards. Florida's soils are naturally high in phosphates. We ask that they use herbicides and pesticides very sparingly if they need to use it to control any pests in their yards. We ask folks to be sure and pick up after their pets, their dogs, when they're out walking them. We can get some high fecal coliform loadings, particularly in some of our tributaries and canals as a result of pet waste in the watershed. And then we also have water-wise landscaping plants that we encourage folks to use in their yards so that they don't require all the fertilizers and pesticides and the water and everything else to using the more native plants. And then finally, I'm sure you all are aware, on September the 28th, the National Estuaries Day is the Hands Across the Lagoon event, and we have a number of events going on up and down the lagoon, about 8 different locations. I saw you had one of the posters out front on the window. And this is the kind of the big poster that shows where all 8 locations are. We've got 2 of them here in Indian River County. One of them is being sponsored locally by the Environmental Learning Center on the Wabasso Causeway, and I've got some flyers for that one. And then we also have the event here on Barber Bridge here in Vero, and the city is a co-sponsor on that causeway, and so we appreciate your support for that event. And I've got additional flyers here if you're interested. We also have some little handouts that we'll be giving to folks that come out on the day of the event. It's in the morning, so hopefully it won't be too hot, but we are going to give everybody a little fan. So I've brought some extra fans for you all to have ahead of the event. Hopefully you'll come out, join your residents and neighbors, and show your support for the lagoon's restoration, and it should be a nice event. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from Mr.
Yes,
Rice?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Rice, with your experience, you obviously listed fertilizer as being one of the problems of pollution within our estuary. What has been your experience with or effectiveness of other areas, or seen in effectiveness of other areas with their fertilizer ordinances? This is, I know Pinellas County's done an awful lot on the West Coast. Any thoughts that we could bring for our lagoon?
A lot of the Gulf Coast communities have adopted what they call the strong fertilizer ordinance that includes the no phosphate fertilizers, the slow-release fertilizers, the 50% slow-release nitrogen fertilizers, and also includes the summertime rainy season application ban. And I have seen some studies from Sarasota in Roberts Bay that shows a pretty significant reduction in nitrogen loadings to Roberts Bay after the adoption of their ordinance in Sarasota about 6, 7, 8 years ago. And then I've also seen a study from Lee County. They have what they call a pond watch program where they go out and monitor the stormwater retention ponds they have in their communities. And they have seen a pretty significant reduction in the loading of nutrients to their stormwater ponds as a result of their adoption of a strong summertime fertilizer ordinance. So there is some data out there. This year, beginning this fall, we're doing a project under the National Estuary Program with a doctor at Florida Institute of Technology to do some assessment of lagoon of fertilizer applications in our watershed, and he has some residential homeowners who have volunteered their yards to serve as demonstration sites, and so we'll have 3 or 4 different demonstration yards in the watershed, and there'll be different applications of fertilizers on different yards. Some will have no fertilizers at all, and some will have 3 or 4 applications of fertilizer over the year, and then they'll do groundwater modeling and some other runoff modeling associated with those yards, and determine how much in fact loading are occurring from that. Unfortunately, we won't have those results probably until about 2015. It's going to be about an 18-month study, but I think it's going to be a very comprehensive study, and we'll have some good results at the end of that study that we can share with all the local governments. So,
Rich, I think it's great to see all of these studies and other projects, but once again, I believe our lagoon is in crisis now, and I think whatever steps that we can take, to improve, at least to stop damaging it any further. We may not be able to heal it, but if we could at least quit damaging it any further, we need to do.
Yeah, in addition to all the studies that we have going on, we are still implementing the capital stormwater projects and doing the habitat improvement projects and things like that. So it's not all studies and research. We have a number of ongoing water quality improvement projects as well right now. So,
Mrs. Turner, I don't know, would it be appropriate, while we have this gentleman here also, Judy, for the public, the city enacted a fertilizer ordinance some time ago. It was, about March or something like that?
I brought this forward 2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay.
And I was the city of Vero Beach, we led the way. And I was very proud of this council in our city that we were able to enact the model ordinance for fertilizer. But we are now looking at, the county has come, I think the whole community is realizing that we are in crisis. Our nitrogen loading is out of sight. Whatever we can do. And it is time for us now to take that extra step to have a more restrictive ordinance. And the county, in its wisdom, has respected our home rule. I wish our state legislator would do it as well. But therefore, the city of Vero Beach has that choice to strengthen our ordinance. And I would ask the council to request our attorney to prepare a ordinance in line with the county for the city of Vero Beach.
Yeah, I'm in support of that, and you've made some very fine points there. Thank you. For the public, as Mrs. Turner said, Vero Beach took the lead on fertilizer, and here in the last 2 commission meetings, and Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, the county commission has put forth a stronger regulation, stronger than ours. Originally, until the meeting, I believe was it yesterday, the idea was that their regulation would cover the cities if the cities had no regulation. However, they changed that So what we have is a situation where we have a leading, in other words, we led the pack, but we have a regulation that's not as strong as the counties. And the reason I brought it up is for the public, city council, we can't discuss these kind of matters amongst ourselves. We have to do it in front of you. But I concur with Mrs. Turner that I think we should take action to strengthen our regulation and, as much as possible, make it uniform with the county, remembering that the people that have to live, the professionals, it's rather cumbersome to have different regulations. And I don't know whether you concur with that or not.
Absolutely. And from an education standpoint, I think, you have a county ordinance that the city should be under the same ordinance for education, so everybody knows that the rules are the same, whether you're on one side of 17th Street or the other side, for consistency. My only question, and I will defer to our attorney and our planning director to look at, is enforcement. And how enforcement, and then the fine. The
what's the
county commission went for $500 fine, and how we would enforce this. We have the capacity to enforce this ordinance.
First of all, are there any other comments by council?
I do have a comment, and I'd like to have you repeat the date and time of the event at the Barber Bridge, just for everyone to know.
Sure, that's 2 Saturdays from now, September the 28th, and that'll be from 9 to 10 a.m. in the morning. And so we're asking folks to get there about 9 o'clock and make their way up along the bridge and get kind of spread out and comfortable and chat with each other for a few minutes. And then about 9:45, we're asking folks to kind of join hands and we'll get some good photos, hopefully, and folks can demonstrate their support for lagoon restoration. So.
Great, and there will be parking available at Milk Williams Park and Park for this event.
That is correct, and I believe the chamber is working with the organization to try to make sure, because I know of at least one volunteer for Saturday to help get people situated on the fence.
I do have one additional question, Troy, and that there was information that some of the seagrasses were returning. However, throughout the Indian River County, we have anecdotal evidence that there are areas where the rhizomes themselves are gone. They've disappeared from the mud underneath. And was that the situation where you saw the seagrasses returning, and do you foresee that the complete depletion of the rhizomes could cause a longer-term problem throughout Indian River County?
Hopefully not. I think time will tell, and we do have a seagrass transplanting project, as I mentioned, that we did a month ago, and we're monitoring that right now to see if that's something that we want to expand next year. But there's 7 different species of seagrass in the lagoon, and the majority of those propagate via seed, and so that's not like your St. Augustine grass that'll through the root system will grow out that way. Now, there are a couple of species that will do that, but most of them are through seed. And so if we can find some areas that have good seagrasses and get some of those seed sources and get them circulating in areas where we've lost the rhizomes, then hopefully this coming spring, we'll start to see some of those come back. And, knock on wood, we won't get any bad algae blooms again that will impact the water quality. So,
have there been seeding projects in the past that have been successful?
There have been planting projects in the past that have been successful.
Transplantation.
Yeah, but not seeding per se. And the seeding is going to have to be a natural type function that's going to have to occur. But there is still some beds out there that are pretty healthy, and hopefully, with the winds and things, that we'll get some circulation that'll help propagate some areas where we've lost it, especially around the inlet. The inlet's a very concerning loss because we usually have pretty good water quality around the inlets because of the good flushing. But the loss there is something that we're really looking into and trying to figure out, why that occurred.
And you're speaking about the Sebastian Inlet loss.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Kramer, you have any comments?
Well, I didn't want to get too far away from the issue with the county. The idea that they had a tougher ordinance is nice. However, I've also heard that they're also playing around with possibly tweaking it a little bit more. Should it be something where we use their ordinance to integrate with ours, or do we just kind of trust them that what they've got they're going to stay with?
Mr. Kramer, comment. I had the same thought, and I think what Mrs. Turner would agree. I don't think we should make any decision tonight other than ask staff to come up with a recommendation into the future of what an improved ordinance would look like. And there'll be dust that'll settle at the county level and so on. And I know Jim and I have talked about it. I know he's got questions about how we would enforce it and so on. And I think if we have a consensus that we should strengthen where we are, taking the groundbreaking work that Mrs. Turner was behind, I think you were one of the prime movers. I think that's enough for tonight.
I think we need to, if anything, mirror the county ordinance as closely as possible, if not, in fact, verbatim. It's going to be easier that way for everyone.
But if it's in the state of flux, and I think that is a question, that if it's going to go through a few revisions.
My next comment is to see if Wayne will get with the county and see if they're in a state of flux or if they're hard fixed.
Well, they had a discussion about it today. I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah, there is a letter that we received a copy of dated September the 10th in which they are going to bring up some two modifications, as I understand, on their October meeting, October the 1st. One is that the slow release nitrogen, they would hold that and make it effective June 1, 2014. And then also under their present ordinance, if the city adopted their ordinance or allowed their ordinance to take place, then they would also have enforcement powers, which I was sort of in favor of, but they're going to rescind that and only have enforcement in the unincorporated areas and put that in their ordinance. There could be a couple more modifications before it's all said and done. My recommendation is let's sort of see what the county does. We can contact them, and having the mirror image ordinance, I think, is important. Enforcement is going to be very challenging, but not only for us, but countywide, in trying to, for example, phosphorus release type of fertilizers, and into their ordinance it requires a testing by the University of Florida to say that there is a lacking of that phosphorus in the plant life, and so I'm not really sure how we would do that. I think one of the things our ordinance has done, and Tim has done an outstanding job, is the educational part. Everyone that gets any type of license or permit for us are required to have that training certificate that they have gone the training to apply the fertilizers. We've been very diligent about controlling and working with that. And I think we've also put a lot of word out to the community. For example, the impacts into our storm drains by the grasses or whatever they may be throwing into that. So I think we've done a fairly good job of that, and it is a point of discussion within the city of Vero Beach. But having the mirror image ordinances, I think, is very important at the end of the day. And I'm not sure that we should go through and they change 1 month, we change the next month and do that.
Yeah,
true.
We can't be. Pilar, you've been the lead on this. Why don't you see how the county ordinance shakes out when it settles down, and then bring this back to us?
I'll be glad to, and I'm delighted to see that council's willing to put forward
I take it we're all in favor of this. I'm all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
great.
If you'll take care
I
of
do
that
have one
part.
other question, and that is there are a significant population of people that do not hire fertilizer companies to modify their grass, but they go over to our local establishments and purchase big boxes and bags of fertilizer and put that on themselves. Will the county fertilizer ordinance impact the type of product that can be sold at establishments throughout our county?
I have not seen that in their
others.
ordinance as to trying to regulate the sales or distribution.
There is?
There is not.
There is not.
I don't think they can restrict what products are
that.
sold. However,
Yeah.
they have committed to an educational thing to work with the suppliers of fertilizer in the area and provide them with the ordinance, and once again request their cooperation. And that has been done on the west coast of Florida, where they've had these stricter ordinances for quite some time. I mean, the Home Depots, the hardware, the people that supply the fertilizer have complied. They've only they decide, hey, people aren't going to buy these products. They're not able to use them in their homes, so we're not going to have them in our stores. And they've complied. They've had great support.
Great. Okay, we'll
I
have.
have one other question, Mr. Mayor, and
Sure.
so Mrs. Carroll and Jim. We were working on you were talking to public awareness, and I know, Tracy, you and Jim, we're working with Judy on a brochure. I just wondered where we were on it. Just an update, nothing more.
Well, I had received one community service organization that had volunteered to donate $500 to the implementation of providing these brochures in the utility bills for the city. And I believe I heard that there was another organization that was coming forward with $1,000.
That is correct.
That's our organization.
Ms. Orcutt.
I'm sorry?
We've committed to provide $1,000 whenever the city's ready to move forward on that.
And did someone say Orca as well?
No, Miss Orcutt is here.
Oh, Miss Orcutt.
Okay.
And I believe it was a total of $2,000 that we needed.
3,000.
3,000. So we are only halfway there at the moment.
Well, yeah, maybe it's time for the $1,000 or whatever the number is. Just for Craig, cut bait and go fishing on the thing, and just let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I think that's probably.
I agree
don't know.
with the city fence.
I agree with that.
That's right.
Any other comments?
If
So what
there
are you
is a
telling
vote of
me
the
to do?
council for us to do that, we will proceed. But I would like to make sure that we have a vote that everybody signs on to this.
I agree.
Don't we have money left over from our budget that we haven't spent this year?
From the city council
We
budget?
City council
Yeah.
fund?
We will find the money. We will take it if that's the direction of the council.
That is the direction of the
Yes.
council.
Very well.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Well, I didn't go either way, but I just wanted to make sure if we could, because a lot of us, we didn't go to a lot of the meetings, we didn't spend a lot of that money. It'd
Yeah.
be nice if it was something
Didn't
from
get
the city
anything.
council to
We will see if we can get it out of
Proceed
city
money for it.
council budget.
You actually
But
have.
we'll proceed with the brochure as
And
indicated.
as soon as we can get an invoice from y'all for $1,000, we'll be happy to contribute that. So.
We're pretty good at sending invoices. So
And,
we'll
if,
make sure.
and it was the Vero Beach Sunrise Rotary Club that offered to donate $500. So if we can get an invoice as well to them.
And I'd
we
like-
really do appreciate your participation. I know that we had several points of discussion on there, but again, I think it's very important that we make people aware, and we'll be reaching a pretty large distribution with our utility customers.
And Judy has put together a pretty interesting and excellent brochure. So
Excellent. Along that line, since we do have Ms. Orcutt in the audience today, would you like to say anything, or at least we could give us a chance to thank you for all your work in the brochure and promotion of the Lagoon Health? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rice. Next item is 2B4. Mr. Roberts, Russell Roberts.
Sir.
Good evening, Rusty.
How are you?
Good to see you again.
Thank you. Glad to be here. We're going to load up.
Your partner in crime want to come up with you? Or?
I mean, he needs to be close to help me when I can't answer a question. We're going to load me up. I was in a traffic jam on the way here, and so I didn't get my thumb drive here quick enough to get it plugged in.
We don't have traffic in
Well,
Indian River
no,
County.
when you're on
It's
the
not allowed.
When you're on the turnpike and there's an accident.
I'm just teasing you.
Traffic
Pardon.
jams aren't allowed in Vero Beach.
No, we keep them in Orlando.
We have an ordinance against them.
Keep them in Orlando.
I think I read that page in the code.
See if I can spill this on you.
Yeah.
Right ahead.
It-
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, Mayor Fletcher, for inviting me. Happy to be here. About a week ago, briefing you and on our project that we've been going up and down the many corridors of this, many counties of this corridor, briefing elected officials and community groups all along the way as past several months to educate them on what's going on with All Aboard Florida. I want to introduce my colleague Richard Pinsky, who's here with us. Richard is he's a government affairs consultant with Ackerman Centerfit and works the Treasure Coast area for us, and he's very knowledgeable about this project, and he's actually been working on it a little longer than I have, I think. I started with the company in April 1st of this year, and it's probably one of the most exciting jobs I've ever had. I'd call it drinking from a fire hose. So happy to be here. Let's see. This is my little thing, right? So All Aboard Florida, everybody's heard about it. We are a private company that wants to build a high-speed rail, and I want to put high-speed in quotes, system from between Miami and Orlando along the Florida East Coast Rail corridor. I think this project is probably one of the most exciting projects in terms of economic development going on in the state of Florida right now. When you think of Florida's history and you think of some seminal moments, some game-changing moments in Florida, one was when Walt Disney came to town, and another one was a guy named Dr. John Gorey, whose statue is in the Capitol in Washington, D.C., who invented refrigeration, the forerunner of air conditioning, which helped populate Florida. And Henry Flagler was probably one of the most significant characters to come to Florida, and in terms of the impact he had on the state, and especially in this coast. So I'm really proud to be working for a company that is associated with Henry Flagler, the successor company of Henry Flagler, which is Florida East Coast Industries. And I won't bore you too much with what we are, but we have Florida East Coast Railway over here, and we have Florida East Coast Industries over here. And Florida East Coast Industries is a sister company to Florida East Coast Railway. We're both owned by a company in New York called Fortress Investments, which bought them in 2007, sort of reorganized the company into these units. And under Florida East Coast Industries, it's all about infrastructure and real estate. Flagler, one of the biggest and oldest real estate companies in Florida. We have a logistics center at Miami Airport that has about 400 acres connected to our rail, connected to the port, brings a lot of goods in. We have a right-of-way management company connected to the railroad to manage and monetize the land on either side of railroads, and we contract with about 28 railroads around the country. And All Aboard Florida, which is the project that I'm here today to talk to you about. And again, transformation is a word that I use a lot, a transformative project. It's going to connect two of the most visited cities in the world, Orlando being the most visited city in the world, and Miami certainly a highly visited city from different populations. Orlando, about 75% of the people who come to Florida, come to Orlando, are domestic. They come from somewhere else in the country or Canada. And then in Miami, it's the flip. About 75% come from overseas, Latin America, to a great extent. One of the interesting parts about the reason why we started to do this was when we lost the $2.5 billion that Governor Scott sent back to the U.S. DOT for the high speed from Orlando to Tampa, our company sat around the table and said, well, wait a minute, we have this corridor. Can we put passenger rail back in this corridor? We did run passenger rail till 1968. You don't go into a decision like that lightly, easily, because it takes a big investment. This investment will be about $1.5 billion, probably more. I think it's already gone up, hasn't it, Richard? And the company has also pledged not to take any taxpayer dollars for this project. And we're going to get into taxpayer dollars. I know we are before I'm done here. But in terms of operating expenses, in terms of capital expenses, we've asked the government for nothing. I'm not going to mention the gentleman's name, but I was briefing a member of Congress a few months ago and telling him about it, and he said to me, well, maybe we have some leftover stimulus money we can get you. And I said, no, sir, we don't want it, but thank you very much. We're going to build this ourselves. And one of the reasons we want to do this, because we want to get this operating quickly. When you start getting the government involved, it slows things down, as you know. We decided it was viable because we looked at the maps and we looked at the studies. We did a ridership study, and we decided there's about 55 million trips between Orlando and Miami every year. If we get just somewhere shy of 10% of those people, we will be making a profit. There's about, we're 19 million people in this state, and, actually that 55 million is only people within about 15 or 20 minutes of the stations there. It's 500 million really going back and forth, but that includes Naples and the whole coast. So we have an opportunity to get a lot of people out of cars and a lot of people out of airplanes and going back and forth, and building tourism along the corridor in both the two terminus cities and the cities in between. One of the reasons why it's going to be successful is why we have to sell it as successful and get people out of the airplanes is make sure we can do it in a timely and an efficient and reliable fashion, and that means you're going to make the trip in 3 hours. People don't want to know how fast is the train going to go. They just want to know how long will it take me to get there. And 3 hours is a sweet spot that we have found when studying other operations around the country that get people to get on the train. We can do it inexpensively, and $1.8 billion is not inexpensive, but when you compare to what's going on in California and other places, it is very inexpensive. And we can do it because we're using a corridor that we own free and clear. And the only time we're not using that corridor is when we leave it at the city of Cocoa and head west to Orlando. And we're going to use some advanced technology that's not being used in the United States today. It's going to be conventional diesel, but it will be clean diesel. It'll be really nice trains. If you've been the Acela train in New York, they're nice. That's our baseline. We're going to take it from there and go up. This is the ridership that we looked at when we did the study. We found that most of the people are going to be leisure travelers. If you've been on the Northeast Corridor between New York and Washington, it's the flip side. It's mostly business travelers. Here it's going to be about 70% leisure travelers, and it's going to be about 30% probably business travelers. And so we're going to gear this product toward those leisure travelers. And a lot of riders are going to come from off the plane in Miami or off the boat, and they're going to want to spend some time in South Beach, and they want to go to Disney, Universal, whatever. Fort Lauderdale, the same thing. We're going to operate hourly service. I mentioned reliability earlier. One of the reasons that you have something like this successful is you want to know that your train is going to come when it says it does, not like Amtrak's doing right now. So we will have hourly service leaving from Miami at 6 a.m., leaving from Orlando at 6 a.m., and we'll run till 9 p.m. every night. So that's about 32 additional trains that will be passing through this county. And in the southern section, we will be going at speeds no higher than 79 miles per hour. In this area here between West Palm and Cocoa, we can go up to speeds of 110, and we'll get to that because we're going to be doing a lot of work on the grade crossings, and I know that's something that wants to be discussed. When we get to Cocoa, we call the Cocoa curve. We turn left and we head toward Orlando. There's no more grade crossings. It's 125. It's about a 7-minute ride, so it's going to be pretty.
Do you stop at all at Cocoa, Rusty?
Not now. When someone asks me if we're going to stop somewhere, I say not now, but maybe down the road. Right now, it's just those 3 stops that you saw on the map.
Okay.
Cocoa would be a logical place to stop, and I'll explain why. And so, as this says, the speed is, based on the curvature and where we pick. When you're going through Stewart or something, you're not going to be going these high speeds. We've got a tight turn and we have a bridge and things like that. So,
Rusty, can I go back to the times of operation again?
Uh-huh.
You had said that the first train would start at what time?
6 a.m.
Is that leaving Orlando and leaving Miami at 6 a.m.?
Simultaneously.
Okay. So the first trains coming through here would then be around 7 a.m. perhaps?
7:30 maybe?
Okay. And then you said until 9 p.m. they would be leaving Miami. So that's trains coming through here around 10:30 p.m.
Correct. And then one coming from Orlando, so the time travel from Orlando here, if you're heading south,
would be 45 minutes?
Yeah, it'd be
about the same.
Almost the same.
That's okay. So we're looking at trains coming through here at 9:30 and 10:30.
That's correct.
And 7:30 and 8:30
and
6:30.
Et cetera. Yeah.
Every hour.
All the time. So again, I talked about the equipment we're going to be buying, and we're going to buy about 10 train sets. A lot different from freight trains, and this is a discussion. I've worked in Orlando for a number of years in politics during the development of the Sunrail. So this is a discussion we were having there as well, and the Tri-Rail had the same discussion. A passenger train is not the same as a freight train, and so they're much shorter. They're about 900 feet. They're much lighter. They're much faster, and so when you're traveling along the corridor, even though you're having 32 trains a day, it's going to be very quick. When you go across a grade crossing, it's less than the signal of a traffic light. So when it comes to discussions with people about the long time that the gates are down for freight trains, it's not going to be the case with us. And I'm going to talk about moving freight off the line too when I get to that point. Another discussion that folks want to have is quiet zones, and we'll be happy to discuss that with you. The quiet zone is where you want to silence the horns when you're coming through a particular crossing, and this may relate to your questions to me, Vice Mayor, about the time of day, because certainly at 10:30 at night or 11, you don't want a lot of loud horns. So a quiet zone is a process that where you secure the grade crossing to the point such that you do not need the engineer does not need to blow the horn. And when you hear the freight trains go by, you hear the horn. It's a sequence that he's got to use, and you probably wonder, 2 long, 1 short, 1 long blast, and that's what they're required to do. And I have to start about a quarter mile away. Once you secure the crossing as a quiet zone, that's a Federal Railroad Administration designation approval, then those horns do not have to sound. But this grade crossing is much more secure. You have a question.
Do the horns, are they required to sound at each intersection in the city limits, we have 7 crossings.
Mhm.
So would they have to? They wouldn't be getting across the next crossing until they hit those horns again.
Yeah,
because
when
they're
you're
so
close by, you're just going to hear a series of horns, a repetition of horns.
So it's going to be horns going through the whole city as they hit all the 7
So
intersections.
often what you want to do is look at a group of crossings that would be a quiet zone. So you can't just do one, but not over here and not over here. You've got to do them together, and then you're going to get some areas that are more that are less populated that you can get away with not doing that. So you definitely have to prioritize.
Okay, so pretty much from 8th Avenue until they hit Gifford, there's just going to be a solid horn.
I don't know.
It sounds like it because we have so many intersections through this little area.
It sounds like it. That's good.
Sounds like it. Sounds like a big horn. Okay.
Sounds like a big one. One of the, I'll be happy to get more into that. One of the hallmarks we think of this train is going to be that it won't be just a passenger train. It's going to be a leisure experience. Now, we've hired as our top management 2 people from Disney. Our president of All Aboard Florida for operations is a guy named Don Robinson, spent 20 years at Disney, ran Disney hotels. He opened Disney Tokyo, opened Disney Hong Kong, ran the hotels in Disney Paris. He knows the Disney way and how to create a hospitality product, and that's what we want to do. We have a co-president who's in charge of station development, also from Disney, helped build the Disney hotels, including the early hotels, the Caribbean and others. Built what he built in Denver, new train station in Denver. Very talented individuals that we've hired, and we plan to build some first-class stations. The first one, of course, being in Miami, which is, you see that trapezoid, that's where Henry Flagler's station was when he, in the 1890s. That's his station location, that's his land, that's our land. It has always been in the company's hands for the past 100 years. For decades, it's been parking lots, and the only revenue we're getting is parking fees. So we definitely want to monetize that. And we have an opportunity to build up to about 3 million square feet of space there, including retail, some super towers, residential, make it very pedestrian friendly. It's not right now. We think it'll be a big economic driver in downtown Miami, where Miami has a lot of vacant space. For a Tier 1 city, has some of the most vacant space in the country. And you can see just to the north of us the proposed downtown hotel and convention center. That's the old Miami Arena, which was torn down when they moved the Heat over to the American Airlines. Gentleman owns that land because of what we're doing, has already announced an 1,800-room hotel and 500,000 square feet of convention space. Wow. And the World Center above that also has a big development planning. We just won rights with the city of Miami just to the left, which would be to the west of our train station, which is the Overtown area, which is a historic black neighborhood in Miami, to do some redevelopment there. It's a CRA, and we won with another company. 2 bidders won to help develop that area, and it will incorporate some of that into our train station platform and hope to create some jobs there. And in Fort Lauderdale, we're going to be right downtown, Broward Boulevard. Does this have a pointer? Yes, right there. Well, I thought it did. So Broward Boulevard is just to the south there, and we're just going to be the north of Broward Boulevard. You see the bus station, that's a Broward Transit Station where the county buses go. We'll be on the opposite side of that, so it will be intermodal with the bus system. And the state office building there, you see that property to the north of that. And to the north of the Broward Transit. We own all that property, and we're going to be building a 1,000-foot platform there and about 1 million square feet, so hotels and that kind of thing. And West Palm Beach is the same situation. We've acquired the land downtown, and we are directly between the Performing Arts Hub on the south and the Government Center to the north, about a 1,000-foot platform there. We actually have to close 2 roads there for our 2 grade crossings, but they're residential, they're low traffic, and we have a workaround plan to move traffic around that station. We're going to connect with the downtown trolley in West Palm Beach, which is a bus rapid transit trolley system. I failed to mention in Fort Lauderdale, they're building a streetcar. It's called the Wave. It's actually at grade, rails in the asphalt streetcar they're building. They got a Tiger Grant a couple of years ago, and they're building that, and that'll interconnect with us, and we're real excited about that. In West Palm, we're going to be right next to the Tri-Rail, which is on the left, the blue line, and so just a few blocks away, and we'll probably be running some sort of shuttle service back and forth there. But that side of the tracks, the west side of the tracks, is underdeveloped. The east side's very well developed, so we think we're going to breathe a lot of economic life into that area as well. Passing right through this county, we're going to Orlando, Orlando Airport, and you can see we're on the State Road 528. We've signed a lease with Florida DOT to access the beach line. We're paying a fee for that. Some folks have asked, we're getting stuff for free. We're not. We have a 99-year lease on that road, paying an annual fee that will go up with inflation. And also the other half of the 528 is owned by the Orlando Orange County Expressway Authority, and we are just about finished with our lease agreement with them, and that'll be on next in an agenda in 3 weeks. Coming into the airport, we're negotiating a lease with Orlando Airport. That'll be on the October agenda with them, our final lease to access them. We'll be coming through the north terminal, the existing terminal. You all have been there. To the south, where they plan to build a new terminal with 120 gates, international terminal, a rental car center, an intermodal center, much like they built in Miami a couple years ago, the MIC, they call it in Miami. We'll have an intermodal center there. That's South Terminal has been on the books since the 90s, and that South Terminal has always had a train station in the plans, and we are taking that slot. It was meant for the high speed that we've talked about for decades around here, so we're going to take that slot. And then we hope to connect to the Sun Rail, which is the commuter rail we have in Orlando, and that's a project that will be a future phase, and we're going to try and accelerate that because we think we'll feed the Sun Rail will feed us, and it'll be quite an economic driver for that area. One of the things about our service, you say, well, what are you going to the airport? What happens? Why would you go to the airport? Well, we don't have any tracks downtown Orlando. Our airports are becoming, around the country now, people are looking at it more of an intermodal place, not just an airport. And so that's what Miami did. This is what we're doing in Orlando. Tampa's now on the verge of doing it. And we hope to, we will be offering service. So it's just not, thank you, get off and you have to get somewhere. Disney Magical Express will pick you up. We'll take you to where you want to go downtown or wherever you need to go. We'll have a service. So we'll be interconnected in all the cities that we're stopping at. We're probably going to break ground at the end of this year. We received our approval for the environmental assessment for the southern portion, West Palm to Miami, earlier this year, finding of no significant impact, and so we're ready to break ground there. We have some contracts on the street, some other contracts about to be signed, and construction will start. We're still working on the environmental assessment for the area we're living in now, from West Palm to Orlando, and we're planning public hearings, and we're going to have a public input meeting in every county in December. So we'll have one in this county in December, the second week. I think it's the week of December 9, Richard. And I don't know the date will be in Indian River County, but we will be here to collect input, and that'll be for the draft environmental impact statement that comes out. As I mentioned, we have our key management in place. We're still hiring people. We're probably going to announce a new brand. All Aboard Florida may not be the best name for the train. It may be for the company that owns the train, but we might call it something clever, and we're working on that. We've hired people who think of these things. And then we have to select a rolling stock provider. We're pretty much there with the train company to going to build our train. As I said, 10 train sets, about $400 million investment. And we'll hope to announce that very, very soon. They will be made in America. And then we're going to hire a third-party operating company to manage the trains for us. We can build it, but we've never really operated a passenger train, so we want somebody who has experience in doing that with other systems around the world. So that's the long and short of it. We think that it's going to this train is going to revitalize the economy all up and down the corridor, and I think also in this county and other counties that we're not currently stopping at, it's going to create thousands of jobs. We counted our consultants about 45,000 construction jobs as we're building out in the next 2 years, and then about 8,000 permanent jobs, and that includes in all the stations and that's not induced jobs that come along because of the economic activity around our stations that grows out of that. So it'll really have a new. I think it'll change the way we travel in South Florida and Central Florida, and I think it'll have a big impact on this state. And I'll be happy to answer any questions and get back into the discussions you want to talk about.
Can you explain a little bit about those jobs? You mentioned 45,000 jobs throughout the state. But let's bring it down to Indian River County. What is the actual work that you will need to do in order to improve the train line throughout the downtown of City and Sebastian and throughout our county to have this capability?
As you know, our corridor is about 100 feet wide. In many places it's single track, and some places it's double track. We are going to double track the entire line, which it was originally when the system quit operating passenger service in 1968. It was all double tracked, and they removed one of the tracks because it became only a freight railroad and not that big of a freight railroad. You know, Florida East Coast Railroad used to be what they call a Class 1 railroad, which is the highest class of in terms of size in the country. Now we're a Class 2 railroad. It's growing again. But so we're going to be laying new track at every intersection, grade crossing. We're going to be doing a lot of work at those grade crossings to make safety improvements. Again, tearing up track, laying down new track, laying down new asphalt, putting in new gates, fencing and those kinds of things to make them more safe. So HNTB is our program manager that's managing most of the contracts. We're not just hiring one company to do all this work. We're hiring probably more than a dozen. Right now, I think they're already out with 10 different contracts on the street for work all up and down the corridor. And one of the things we told them was that you need to, the main general contractors in terms of the subs that they need to find is to hire people in the counties where you're doing the work. So go to companies in those counties where you're doing the work and have the work done in that county. So we're going to have people in every county along the corridor, kind of hitting, not quite simultaneously, but it's not going to be one of those things where we're starting in Miami and working north. We're just going to hit the corridor and start doing work as we need it. It's all going to be carefully choreographed. Some of it's going to take longer, new bridge work, that kind of thing. So we hope to hire, people in this county and other counties along the way.
You mentioned fencing and safety. Currently, throughout the city of Vero Beach, the tracks are not fenced. Now, there's a few walls and things that people have built off all of their property in the past. But when a 75 to 100 mile an hour train is coming through, that's coming through pretty fast. We even have schools that are located very close to the train crossings. What type of safety mechanisms will you be putting in, and how do we as a city look forward in terms of future sidewalks that we may choose to put in, and whether we would need to let you know about those future plans for the safety requirements that, for instance, sidewalks would need?
So starting about October 1, we are going to have teams of engineers fanning out across the corridor to study the entire corridor, all the grade crossings, and all along the corridor, what we need to do for safety upgrades. So that team includes people from the Federal Railroad Administration, Federal DOT, all aboard Florida, and Florida East Coast Railway. And it's guys with clipboards. And they're going to be going to every grade crossing, looking at it. What do we need to do? What do we need to do to make it suitable for passenger rail, to comply with Federal Railroad Administration guidelines for this type of passenger rail system, and how to make it safe. For us, safety is the key. So that diagnostic process will take about 2 months. And part of that will be, of course, areas where we feel that we need to seal the corridor, and that would be any fencing that might be necessary along the way. I don't think the entire corridor is going to be fenced, but where we have areas, I think that probably, and I'm not one of the engineers going to be out there, so some of this is kind of speculation on my part, but it's also logical speculation, where areas where we see that there is a danger of a lot of people crossing the tracks because it's easy. Every time they do it, they're trespassing, but they cross the tracks anyway. We might have to seal that and make people go to pedestrian crossing. So those types of studies are going to be underway, and we are going to determine what we need to do and how much it's going to cost, and we're going to share that data with all the cities and counties.
Will we be aware of when the engineers are planning on coming to the city?
We could probably do that. I mean, I don't know when. I don't know what the schedule is, but that's something that I will ask, and we'll find out and see if we can notify you that on such a date or this week, we'll have people visiting. It seems like a reasonable request, so we'll do that.
So it seems pretty much during the time frame between sometime after October the 1st and December the 2nd, the city needs to determine if, in fact, we have desires to produce quiet zones. Is that correct?
So by the end of November, I think, if all goes to schedule, you will have copies of our preliminary engineering reports for the design changes we need to make to comply with the FRA. At that point, you would be able to then take a look and say what you need to do in addition to that for the quiet zone.
That's between November 30th and second week of December. We would have to decide.
If all the planets are aligned.
That's my concern. And if you
No. You mean you have to decide? No. I mean, I'm not saying that construction isn't going to start up here in December, if that's what you're asking me.
Well, if we had concerns with quiet zones and concerns with public safety and for instance, we have the train going right near the high school, and we have plenty of high schoolers that cross those tracks every day to get to and from school.
Right.
And it's something we need to take into consideration.
Right.
And that's why I put on the agenda today
Yes.
if you don't mind, Mayor, if I can
Right ahead.
move into
Segue
that.
right into it.
The City Council to create a temporary commission to provide public and business input to the city as these long-term decisions are made to the downtown rail corridor crossings and possible quiet zones and the impact of high-speed rail on our community. Going forward, as our city code allows us to do, in Section 2-101, provide temporary city commissions and boards to assist the City Council in determining the needs of the public.
Ms. Carroll, did I understand this timing frame right? And excuse me, Mr. Roberts, that your report will be submitted to us by November the 30th, and we have until December. First week of December.
The second week of December.
Second week of December to respond on what we are going to do as far as quiet zones.
I don't know how that you would have got that idea.
Well, you said that during the second week of December was the time frame that you would be coming to Indian River County to discuss any issues that we had.
Got it.
So we really have about 10 days there to formulate the issues that we have, unless we put together this commission and board now to start studying, to look proactively.
Well, first of all, I recommend you do that. And I do think you start studying now, and you look at what you're going to need to do. But when we come, when I'm talking about December 9, that's for public input for the environmental impact statement only. It has nothing to do with the construction plan that we're doing.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, sir. Can you come to the mic? Because I don't know what you're saying.
Come on up, Richard.
Okay, Richard Pinsky. And to answer the question more specifically, you're going to have plenty of time. The data that we're going to be talking, we talked to your manager, Jim O'Connor, about it. You're going to have plenty of time after the data comes to you to marry your data and whatever your commission and committee is doing. That's the point, that you are going to start the public input part of the process. You want to know what your constituents believe. Then we're going to be giving you the data that then you're going to be marrying and hopefully be making some decisions in the future of where you may want a quiet zone. But you're going to have plenty of time to, once you get the data, to marry it up with what you're doing to make that determination.
Now, I do have another question, and I don't know if you can answer this at this time or if that would be as part of the discussions that are taking place above my pay grade. But
mine too.
In the past, if there were necessary improvements to crossings within the city of Vero Beach, the city received the bill for those crossings because we have, well, to be perfectly honest, you guys were there first. Flagler had the land before the city of Vero Beach was developed. Will that be the case this time as we double track? I'm sorry, as you double track and then have to move the crossing arms and put in crossing arms on sidewalks and all of these upgrades that will be necessary, is that going to fall to our city budget?
Yes.
So
don't commit yet, Mayor.
So the answer to that is you do have agreements with the railroad that have been in place, Mr. O'Connor, for a long, long time, and those agreements remain in place. However, the railroad has been considering this quite a bit for the past several months. We've been talking to councils like yourself and elected officials all along the corridor, and the same concern comes up. So what we have decided to do, and this is something that is decided today, so this is a new, exciting, kind of a new announcement. You heard it first, because, and as a matter of fact, we were told tomorrow I can start telling people this, and I said, I can't, I have to tell people this today, because I'm coming to Vero Beach. So what the railroad has decided to do is when we start working on our grade crossing improvements to comply with Federal Railroad Administration regulations for this type of train, normally we would go to the agreements and say, we've done this, now you have to pay for this, or we'll do it and we'll give you an invoice. We've decided to waive that. We are not going to pass any of the costs along to the cities or the counties for the grade crossing improvements for the safety improvements that we need for the railroad. The agreements will remain in place, and in the future, as the routine maintenance comes up in the years to come, those agreements will be again utilized and used.
That's a biggie. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So
that does not include the quiet
that does
zone
not
or any
include
other
quiet
option.
It doesn't
that's
include
a
the quiet
different
zone. That's a fairly strict is not the word I'm looking for, but carved in stone Federal Railroad Administration process that you must follow, and the cities have to do that. We can't make the application. What we are doing, though, we have been and we continue to pledge to work with all the public entities who want quiet zones, to work with them to help them get through the process. But it's going to be the city of Vero Beach in this case that has to come up with the design plans to submit into the Federal Railroad Administration and do the work and pay for the work that's necessary.
Would that be additional on top of what you were doing in terms of the construction?
Right.
Could we, if we wanted quiet zones and we wanted to somehow fund those, would we be able to piggyback on top of the movement of the arms as you're doing that and just pay the incremental, as opposed to making the decision a year from now and then having to have it all redone?
I think it would be cost effective to do it at the same time.
I agree.
To figure out what you need to do. And I'm just guessing, because I'm not an engineer or construction guy, but I'm just guessing that some of the safety improvements that we are making might incrementally get you a little closer to where you need to be for the quiet zone.
Any other questions for
just a real quick question. My assumption is that when you guys double track, you're just going to add another line on the west side coming through Vero Beach. I mean, it looks like you're all switched to going east, so I mean, it would make.
Unless we actually realign both of them and move one a little this way and that way. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Because you had said a little while ago that you were going to be replacing both of them in some areas.
Well, I think most of the track has to be really upgraded.
Yes, because it's for the gauge of the train. So the rail is going to be a fused rail. There's going to be new 2014 type of rail, not 1950 type of rail where they're hammering it in. But to answer your question, Councilman, it all depends on the alignment. That's exactly what Rusty was alluding to, is the engineers are going to be out there with the clipboards, and the straighter the line, the little faster the train can go. So there will be some realignments. If it works out now that the track is a little off-center, that works out very well. If it's right down the middle, it may have to be moved and then a double track. So it's not clear yet through the entire county whether you're moving it left, right, or what you're doing.
Okay. The reason I bring that up is I know we do have some leases with Florida East Coast, and I think if you guys were going to consume a little bit more of the right-of-way, that some of those leases might have to be renegotiated. I'm thinking particularly behind the Leisure Square. Or not Leisure Square, the rec center.
Yeah, the corridor's not going to change. 100 feet corridor doesn't change.
They already have that.
But don't we lease some of the parking that just overlaps?
We do. We
That's
do have a
right.
portion of the parking there.
We might lose that then.
That's something that would have to be discussed, sure, with the company.
Would we also have the option if this started to get expensive that we could shut down some of the crossings? I'm thinking of 14th Avenue.
Absolutely.
I know that would probably make you guys happy, but I don't know if that's going to.
And if of course, the possibility exists that we could do some type of.
Let me tell you part two of
swap.
my announcement. Thank you for reminding me, Councilman. So, if the city chooses to close a crossing, that saves the railroad money. We will take some of those savings and apply it to the other.
To the quiet zone, for instance.
Wonderful.
Good answer. Great.
And again, that is another reason why I put this on, because those type of discussions need to start immediately because they are on a time frame to get this done. Because in the past we've kind of looked at this and we've talked about it, and it's always been, well, if they get the money, if they get the approval, if they do it, it's a pie in the sky idea. But now it seems like it's.
So what I'm going.
You guys are saying you guys got hired. You guys are saying it's a pretty done deal.
Yes.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. I think we're this bird's going to fly. So what I'm going to do is ask the higher ups in terms of the timing for the notification for you all when we're going to be here. And I can't say that anybody from the city, from Public Works, will be allowed to join us on these trips because it's all Federal Railroad Administration. It's really tight rules. You need to have approvals. You have to to be on our corridor and flagman and this and that. So I don't know who could be on the team, but we could certainly probably notify you what week we're here or 2 weeks or whatever it is, and then put our people together with your public works people in terms of coordinating. And if you're going to do your commission and get input and start studying a quiet zone, you're probably going to want to have your own engineer look at it, and coordinating with us would be something we would be happy to do. Some of the counties are teaming together, grouping together to have just, especially in Palm Beach County, to have maybe the MPO do the work for the quiet zones, because it's an economy of scale. You have one engineering company doing the entire county, not just Vero doing something and then the county doing something. So that's
I did bring this up at the last MPO meeting last week, and we have that on the agenda. That I'm going forward with this to bring it up with the MPO so we all work together.
And I spoke with the MPO director today about this. So.
And also Kim Delaney with the Treasure Coast Regional Plan Council is very involved in this, and she actually gave a presentation last week to the Treasure Coast Council of Local Governments on this issue.
Any other questions for Mr. Roberts? The one question that everybody's always asked is when do you expect to add, or if you expect to add more stops than what you're showing now?
Are we out of time, Richard? So the route that we planned is very carefully designed with a profit in mind. And so that is to get to stop where most of the people live and to get to point A to point B in the time period that we feel is most efficient and profitable, and get people to get on our train. That's Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, Orlando. So what we want to do, our answer to that question is we're going to build the base system. That's the trunk of the tree. And we're going to get this thing running, and we're going to hopefully make it successful. This will be the only privately run passenger rail enterprise almost in the last 50 years. So this is quite a gamble. A lot of people around the country are looking with great interest. Most people very hopeful that we succeed. So this is the route that we think succeeds. Now, after that happens and we're successful, we will want that's a discussion we will want to have about future stops. It will not be hourly service. It might be 2 or 3 trains a day. So some people in Miami might get on the fast train that doesn't stop in Vero. Somebody might get on a train that does stop. But that's a discussion that I would say is a little premature right now, because if we're not successful, no one's going to get a stop. If we don't get this built the way it is right now,
I had to ask the question.
You had
Public wants to know.
And you asked about Cocoa, and that's another logical place, because if we choose another phase, if we're successful, we'll want to talk about going to Tampa. We might want to talk about going to Jacksonville. That's a junction.
Currently, you're looking at population densities that will feed your...
Yes, sir.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. A year ago, Kim Delaney and others were involved in a program to try to interest Amtrak to use this corridor that was built. Does anybody know, including you gentlemen or Tracy, what has happened to that? I mean, is that off the table now, or?
It's not off the table. Kim brought that up last week. It's still in the possibility stage.
The discussions have been rather quiet over the last couple of years. One is Amtrak's lack of funds. But I will tell you that those are going to be reignited. Initial discussions have already been held, and with the idea of the initial discussion is such that how do we start the discussion again? And so that will be coming along. But I don't think that's going to be in the near future. But it's something that Amtrak wants to happen. I think it's something that Florida East Coast Railway would like to happen. And there is capacity. People say, well, how can you do that? 14 freight trains a day, 32 more passenger trains a day, Amtrak coming down. We were just talking, maybe someday Sunrail in Orlando could come down here and, feed people. But there'll be a whole new commission. I have a council. I have to have a feeling at that point. But so the capacity is not really a problem. The Northeast Corridor between New York and Washington, it's 391 trains a day going up and down it. So we're not going to have that many.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Roberts? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mayor, if you don't mind, I would like to make a motion that we begin creating a temporary commission and taking applications from individuals throughout our homes and our businesses in the downtown corridor for individuals from the public to provide input to the city as we move forward on this.
I'd second that motion.
And I don't know if there's anyone from the public that might want to speak.
Is there anyone from the
is.
public that would like to ask any questions of the gentleman? Please come forward.
Just real quickly, is this something we should just ask the MPO to look at doing?
They're going to be the lead agency on this. I think they're going to take it over anyway.
However,
if we want to do a group here of our own, certainly we need somebody from the P&Z. We need somebody from engineering. We need somebody from Main Street.
right.
Those would be the three that I can
Chamber
think
of
of.
Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce.
I'm a little concerned with the concept of letting the county take over for this. In the past, they haven't wanted to share that often their funds with us for things like developing a quiet zone, and that would be my only concern.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't think they're going to. Anyway, Tracy, I'll tell you what. Just be with you in a minute. She's got a motion on the floor, and I have a second. Under discussion, why don't you take this under your
All right.
bonnet and get someone from P&Z Engineering, downtown Vero Beach, the Chamber, and come back to us with a list of who you want on the committee.
Well, shall we draft a resolution forming the committee?
Yeah, we'll have to do that too. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Wayne.
Is there a particular name we want to call?
Let's work on that.
Work on it. Okay.
Down the
High-Speed Rail Commission?
there you go. The impact of the high-speed rail.
Yeah, high-speed rail is fine. High-speed rail commission is fine. Okay, go right ahead. Excuse me.
Okay, Sue Donino, 5125 Tradewinds, Vero Beach. A couple of years ago, you'll recall, I project managed painting the wall that runs along the train track.
Yes.
And there was an amazing amount of train track debris along that wall. Enormous chunks of iron. It was a lot. And in the spirit of good neighbor, I would hope when you go through and you tear out all of these tracks and you put in all this new stuff that you go back and clean up that mess, because it's really a hazard. You know, the people walk through there, and when people were going around looking at the work we were doing, it was hard doing the work, keeping from falling over because of all of this debris that's there. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to ask the gentleman questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, again.
If somebody wants to tell me exactly where that location is, I'll tell the owner.
Let's do the well.
You want to give them that?
Yeah,
give
tell
them
them
that
where it
address.
is.
They'll
Yeah,
write the
tell
address
them where it is.
down.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Under public comment, let's see. Why don't we take a break right
I think
now?
you should have a motion in a second.
We need to vote on the
Okay.
motion.
Yeah, I'll let them finish.
Under public comment, Mr. Johnson?
Mr.
We
Mayor,
have to vote.
you need a vote. You have a
Oh,
motion
we
in
did have
second.
all in favor of the committee? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Johnson, thank you for your patience.
Sorry, just get them through there.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, and Council, thank you for having us here tonight. We're here to announce the 6th year of the Day of Service for Indian River County. I'm fairly new. I've just moved here a couple of months ago from 10,000 feet to sea level. So I'm trying to catch up, but I am the co-chair for this year's Day of Service. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Robin Volsky, who literally wrote the book on how to do the Day of Service, all 475-something pages of it. I'd also like to introduce Mr. Charles Hauber, who is the Bishop of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in Vero Beach, and who this congregation has spearheaded this in the past. And it's an interfaith event, and we're here to announce the date, but I'll turn the time over to Mr. Volsky.
Thank you, Bill. And thank you first to Mayor Fletcher for seeing us, and for council members, Mrs. Turner and Mr. Kramer, who have both represented yourselves in support of the Indian River County Day of Service in past years. We also like to thank people who have, I don't know if they're still here or not, but the Unity Church was here for a little while. and there may be a couple of organizations that we might be able to help as we go forward in the future. Basically, if any of you are new to this event, just a brief description of this is that this is a coming together of as many as 20 different churches and civic organizations in the community. We had 220 volunteers last year between Vero Beach and Sebastian, and moving out into Fellsmere as we go forward. And in the past, we've served in the last years as many as 40 or 50 service agencies within the county. So we follow the pattern of helping the agencies that are helping the poor, unless we find individuals that we can safely go into their yards and be able to help clean up their yards, individuals that are, say, cancer survivors or of the like, that just finding the needy is more important to us than serving an agency if we can have direct contact. So at this point, we'd like to put out the heads up that we are planning to, again, have a day of service, April 26, 2014. And that little flyer there that you're seeing represents a group of people who are voluntarily getting together on a Saturday to go out and to help their community in the best way they can. You might recognize some of your faces in the picture, and again, thanking you and anyone who might be here or who might be watching tonight who have participated in the past. We'd like you to clear your calendars and to consider supporting us again this year, April 26th. 2014. Now, that was a general description. Some of you already know what the day of service is, but if anyone would like to open up any questions or address questions to myself or to Bishop Hauber, feel free to do so at this time.
Thank you. Any questions of the gentleman? Bishop, would you like to make a statement?
Well, we appreciate this opportunity to be here this evening and speak with you. We were here, I think, April a year ago and requested and received a proclamation for the Day of Service. And we look forward to having that opportunity again in 2014. We're very grateful to the support of the community in putting on this Day of Service. The work that's been done is even amazed me at the response of this community. I'm very proud to be a member of the Vero Beach community and of Indian River County when the people respond to us as they have in the past. We're really just the organizers. We have our membership participate as well. Over the years, we've represented maybe a third to a half of the people who have actually worked on the Day of Service, but without the rest of the community, it would have been much less of a impactful activity than it has been. So thanks again for your support in putting on the Day of Service, and we look forward to helping the community again this coming year as we have in the past. I might say one of the things that we were trying to do is to instill in people the idea of providing their own labor and their own efforts to serve the more needy people in our community. And just one example that has grown out of that day of service is an ongoing project that we have with the Source of helping to provide a meal once a month there. And I know there are other organizations that also provide meals at that location, but within our own organization, a day of service resulted in a year-long service with our people. And hopefully that we can help sponsor or instill in other people the same desire to have ongoing service in the community. But thanks again. We appreciate it.
We want you to, of course, tell us what how to get in touch with you. You have a web page, et cetera, and a phone number?
On your flyer, there's a web page indicated ircdayofservice.org, and that'll give you the local web page for information about the Day of Service. There is a region-wide website, dayofservice.org, which will talk about the different cities and states involved in this 11 to 15 state initiative, which has grown over the years to to an average of 50,000 volunteers on that fourth Saturday.
Wow, that's great.
Of the month.
Laura?
Chair, I just want to say something. This is a terrific opportunity for you to perform some service in your community and show your kids it's not just all about talk. Bring your kids. They all pitched in. They can all find all different kinds of task levels that are appropriate for the children. And it is wonderful. It is just a terrific day, well organized. I thank you, gentlemen, so much for bringing this to our community.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break now, and let's be back here at 10 minutes till. That'd be 7:50.